In the damp, whispering shadows of 12th century Ireland, a mystic named Malachy Ó Morgair etched 112 ominous Latin phrases onto parchment, visions of every pope until the Catholic Church's apocalyptic end. But what if those visions were never divine? What if they were plundered? Centuries later, in 1595, the prophecies resurfaced like a ghost from the grave, their pages stained with esoteric symbols and ciphers that reeked of Renaissance occultism. Scholars dismissed them as a forgery, yet the truth was far more sinister. The manuscript had been altered. Hidden in its margins lay a Rosicrucian cipher, a serpentine trail of alchemical codes and Masonic sigils suggesting secret societies had hijacked Malachy's words to script their own dark gospel. The Vatican, trembling at the prophecy's final line, "In the last persecution, Rome will be destroyed," buried the text. But whispers endure of a phantom parchment, older and darker, its pages mapping a ritual older than Christendom itself. Who truly holds the quill that writes the end? The Church, clutching its rosaries in candlelit chapels, or shadowed hands guiding history toward a crescendo of chaos? The stakes coil tighter than a hangman's noose. Malachy's prophecies, once dismissed as medieval myth, now pulse with a cryptic urgency. Each papal motto, from the scourge of the mountains, the glory of the olive, unspools dual meanings. A pope's reign, yes, but also a step in an arcane ladder. 112 popes, 112 rungs. And at the summit, the 113th key, a figure absent from Malachy's list, yet whispered in Masonic lodges and Rosicrucian vaults as the unseen pope. A puppet of forces hungry to rebirth the world in fire. Consider the eerie parallels. In 1738, as Freemasons were excommunicated, a clandestine meeting in Paris debated using the prophecy to unseat the throne of Peter. In 1909, a Vatican archivist drowned in the Tiber hours after logging a manuscript titled De Clavis Occulta, the hidden key, its pages linking Malachy's last pope to a blood ritual requiring the spear of destiny and a descendant of the saint's Celtic bloodline. And in 2023, as the current pope falters under the weight of scandals, fringe forums buzz with a leaked photo, a dagger-clad parchment mailed to a Roman lodge, its ink fresh, its symbols screaming Petrus Romanus. But here lies the razor's-edge truth. Malachy's visions were never about prediction. They were a weapon, a blueprint for a new world order veiled as prophecy, its architects lurking in history's blind spots, Rosicrucians threading heresy into heresy, Freemasons bending kings to their will, Jesuit spies hunting relics in the dark. The Church, desperate to bury its complicity, wages a silent war. Yet beneath Strasbourg Cathedral, a vault sealed by Templars waits, its locks keyed to the 112th Pope's final breath. Will it unleash ascension or annihilation? The line between sacred and profane blurs, the clock ticks, and somewhere a cryptographer whispers the unthinkable, pro mutans eris, you will be transformed. The question isn't who wrote the prophecy, it's who rewrote it, and what hell they're preparing to unfurl. The body of Father Alessio Conti floated face down in the Tiber at dawn, his cassock bloated with river water and secrets. Only hours earlier, the Vatican archivist had burst into the Apostolic Library's restricted vault, his breath ragged, clutching a manuscript so ancient its vellum crackled like dried bone. "They're not prophecies, they're instructions," he'd hissed to a junior librarian, his eyes wild as a medieval woodcut of the damned. By midnight, he was dead. Officially, a tragic slip on rain-slick cobblestones. Unofficially, a warning. The manuscript vanished, but not before Conti scrawled one trembling note in his logbook. Malachy's text is a lie. The margins speak. The truth began in 1139, in the mist-choked valleys of Armagh, where St. Malachy Ó Morgair, tormented by fever dreams of a dying church, etched 112 Latin mottos onto parchment. Each phrase, a Gnostic riddle, allegedly foretold the reign of every pope until the final judgment. "In the last persecution, the Holy Roman Church will be destroyed," he wrote, before sealing the scroll and entrusting it to the Vatican. But the original vanished, swallowed by history, until 1595, when a Benedictine monk rediscovered it in Rome's archives. Scholars scoffed. The timing was too convenient, the ink too fresh, the Latin too polished for the 12th century. A forgery, they declared, a heresy. Yet none dared explain the symbols crawling like spiders in the margins, geometric sigils, alchemical glyphs, a serpent coiled around a rose. Conti's doomed manuscript was no mere copy. It was the source, the true text, smuggled out of Ireland by Cistercian monks during the Protestant purges, hidden in a lead casket beneath a Normandy abbey. When Renaissance occultists unearthed it, they grafted their own dark liturgy onto Malachy's visions. Here, in the grimoire-like margins, lay the Rosicrucian cipher, a labyrinth of numbers and astrological signs, its key known only to initiates of the Ordo Rosei Aureae. Conti had deciphered fragments before his death, phrases linking the prophecy to the Brotherhood's ascent and the alchemist's fire. One passage chilled him most, a reference to Clavis Centesima Tertia, the 113th key, a papal figure absent from Malachy's list, described not as a man, but a doorway. The Vatican's archivists had long dismissed the 113th key as a heretic's fantasy. But Conti's notes hinted at darker threads. Cross-referencing dates, he'd found anomalies. Malachy's mottos aligned eerily with the rise of secret societies. The 16th century manuscript's marginalia bore the hand of John D. Elizabeth, I's occult advisor whose obsession with angelic cryptography birthed the Enochian language. Worse, a faded sketch of a compass and square, the Masonic emblem, appeared beside the prophecy for Pope Clement XIV, 1730-1740, who infamously excommunicated Freemasons. Coincidence? Or proof that the prophecy had been weaponized, its verses repurposed as a blueprint for a new world order? Conti's final scroll. Petrus Romanus is the key, but the lock is older. Pointed to Malachy's last pope, whose reign would precede Rome's destruction. Yet in the manuscript's margins, the phrase Petrus Romanus was scribbled not in Latin, but in Templar cipher, its letters rearranged to form Pro Mutans Eris. You will be transformed. Nearby, a diagram showed a phoenix rising from a papal tiara, wings spread over a pyramid, an unmistakable nod to the Great Seal of the United States. Conti had circled it in red ink, annotating, "The 113th is not a pope, it's a ritual." But who would dare rewrite a saint's vision? The answer lurked in the manuscript's provenance. Carbon dating placed its vellum in the 12th century, but the ink told a fractured tale. Iron gall from Malachy's era, mixed with 16th century vermilion, and gold, the signature of Renaissance alchemists. One name recurred in Conti's files: Giordano Bruno, the Dominican friar burned at the stake in 1600 for heresy. Bruno, a known Rosicrucian sympathizer, had written of a cosmic key hidden in plain sight, capable of unlocking the gates of epochs. Had he annotated Malachy's manuscript, embedding occult commands into prophecy? Conti's last email, sent minutes before his death, claimed as much. Bruno didn't interpret Malachy, he edited him. The 113th key is the fork in God's road. As Conti's body was pulled from the Tiber, a figure watched from the Ponte, Sant'Angelo clutching a leather-bound folio. Inside lay a single page, its edges charred, bearing Malachy's original motto for the 112th Pope, "Glory of the Olive." But below it, in blood-brown ink, a new phrase simmered, "the olive consumed." And in the margin, a date, 2025. The game was alive. The manuscript, now loose in the wild, was more than a relic. It was a detonator, and Conti's death was the first spark. Somewhere, a vault opened, a ritual stirred, and the 113th key, long dormant, began to turn. The package arrived at the Palazzo Massimo Lodge at midnight, its wax seal stamped with a phoenix rising from ashes, a Rosicrucian, mark last seen in the 18th century. Inside lay a rusted Misericordia dagger, its blade etched with Enochian script, and a singed page from Malachy's manuscript. The page's margin bore a single phrase, "He who holds the olive shall burn it." The Freemasons recoiled. They knew this dagger. It had once belonged to Cagliostro, the infamous 18th century occultist whose Egyptian Rite Masonic schism nearly toppled the Vatican. But it was the manuscript fragment that froze the room, a diagram of St. Peter's Square overlaid with a celestial chart, its angles aligning to the 1738 excommunication of Freemasons by Pope Clement XIV. The same year, a secret conclave in Paris voted to weaponize Malachy's prophecy. History's shadows bled into the present. The Enlightenment, that gilded age of reason, had birthed a clandestine war. Rosicrucians, with their alchemical obsessions, claimed Malachy's manuscript as a divine blueprint to usher in an age of esoteric enlightenment. But Malachy's text was a hall of mirrors. Tulil, the number of popes, was also a numeric cipher. Sum the digits, 1 Ros 1 2 Far 1, the sacred number of chaos in Rosicrucian law. Multiply them, 1 1 1 1 2 2 2, the duality of creator and destroyer. But Voss unearthed a darker truth. Medieval Kabbalists believed 112 steps led to the Shevirat HaKelim, the shattering of the vessels, a cosmic disaster where divine light fractured into sparks trapped in mortal shells. Was the prophecy a countdown to another shattering, each pope a vessel, each reign a step closer to ascension or implosion? The phoenix motif confirmed it. Scrawled in the manuscript's margins, the bird's flames twisted into a Fibonacci spiral, a Rosicrucian emblem of eternal rebirth. But Voss traced the ink's chemical signature to 1789, the year the French Revolution beheaded God and King. Coincidence, or proof the reset had been planned for centuries? The phoenix's talons clutched a scroll reading Ex Cineribus from the ashes, but spectral imaging revealed erased text beneath Ex Sanguine from the blood, a callback to the 1614 Fama Fraternitatis, the Rosicrucian manifesto demanding Europe's purification by fire. Now, cross-referencing Malachy's phrases with Masonic Lodge records, Voss found a pattern. Every 112 years, a pope died under suspicious circumstances. Pope Clement XIV in 1774, poisoned. Pius VIII in 1830, sudden illness. John Paul I in 1978, 33 days on the throne. The next cycle, 2025. Then came the anagram. Petrus Romanus, Malachy's final pope, the last guardian, rearranged into pro mutans eris. You will be transformed. But transformed into what? Voss dissected the Latin, mutans derived from mutare, to alter but also muta, silence. A forced evolution, or a silencing. Her software flagged a Templar ledger from 1307, the year the order was annihilated. In its margins, a knight had scribbled, "The 113th is the mutatio, God's face turned away." The number 113 pulsed like a tumor in the data. 1 + 1 + 3 = 5, the pentagram's points. 113 days from the spring equinox to the summer solstice. 113 degrees, the temperature at which human blood boils. Freemasons, pragmatic architects of revolution, saw it as leverage, a way to fracture the Church's grip on Europe. In candlelit Parisian cellars, Masonic grandmasters once debated whether to leak the Prophecies' darkest stanzas. Rome will be drowned in blood. The throne of Peter becomes ash. Let the Vatican choke on its own fear, argued one, while dissenters warned, to wield this is to dance with the devil's own lexicon. They compromised, embedding coded references to the prophecy in Masonic rituals, a gambit to bind future lodges to their cause. But the Rosicrucians retaliated. In 1746, a splinter faction infiltrated Masonic ranks, scribbling Malachy's phrases into initiation oaths and grafting astrological sigils onto lodge tracing boards. By 1789, as revolutionaries guillotined French clergy, whispers spread that the Brotherhoods had activated the prophecy, that the Church's fall was not political but scripted. Now, centuries later, the dagger on the Palazzo Massimo altar proved the game still raged. Carbon tests revealed dried blood on its hilt. DNA matched to a 1909 Vatican librarian's corpse, pulled from the Tiber with Masonic symbols carved into his flesh. The celestial chart on the manuscript page, it plotted stars over Rome for March 20th, 2025 from the spring equinox, and the date Malachy's last pope was to reign. Yet the true horror lay in the diagram's center, an Ouroboros encircling a tiara, its tail devouring the papal keys. The same symbol adorned a 1738 meeting ledger recovered from a burned Bordeaux chateau, where Masonic scribes had written, "The last pope is not an end, but a door." The ritual requires 3 pillars, a relic, a reckoning, and the unseen pope. As the Roman lodge's master gripped the dagger, a realization slithered through him. This wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. The Brotherhoods were no longer rivals, they were partners in a symphony of annihilation, and the first note had just been played. The cryptographer's hands shook as the numbers bled through the ultraviolet light. 946-112V, etched like scars beneath Malachy's Latin. Dr. Ilara Voss had decrypted state secrets, Nazi ciphers, even the Zodiac killer's taunts. But this was a language older than Babel. The manuscript page, smuggled to her in a lead-lined diplomatic pouch, reeked of myrrh and burnt hair. "It's not a prophecy," she whispered. Her Berlin loft, lit only by the sickly glow of her screens. "It's a map." The numbers weren't dates. They were coordinates, 56°3N, 4°43W, a desolate stretch of Scottish moor where the Templars had buried something older than their order, and the key to unlocking it lay in the 112th phrase, Petrus Romanus. But the coordinates gnawed at her. Roslin Chapel, Scotland, its vaults sealed since the Templars' massacre, sat precisely at 56°3N. The chapel's apprentice pillar, carved with stone vines and dragons, was rumoured to guard the Holy Grail. Yet Voss's algorithm spat out a different secret. The pillar's 112 spiral grooves matched Malachy's papal count. A ritual staircase? A literal ascension? She cross-referenced blueprints. Beneath the chapel lay a crypt marked with the same phoenix symbol from the manuscript. Satellite thermal scans showed a hollow chamber, its dimensions mirroring the Vatican's Sistine Chapel, an inverted twin. At 3:33 a.m., her computer chimed. The UV light had exposed another layer. Greek letters hidden in Malachy's Latin. Alpha, Omega, Tau. AOT, the initials of the ancient god Apophis, the serpent of chaos, but also the chemical symbol for gold, Gu with a T, the Templar cross. Voss laughed, a brittle sound. Alchemy, of course. The Rosicrucians' quest to transmute lead to gold wasn't metallurgy, it was societal. turn humanity's dross into enlightened gold through fire. Malachy's prophecy was the recipe. Her phone buzzed, a Vatican area code. She didn't answer. Outside, a storm clawed at Berlin's streets. On screen, the coordinates flickered: 56°3N, 4°43W, 4ploy347, 4C43Bu72, 1+7.210. Completion, judgment. She typed a final query. Roslin, +1/13th key. The screen filled with a 15th century woodcut. A pope kneeling before a faceless figure in a phoenix crown, its hands melting into the roots of a dead oak. The caption, "The unseen pope plants the seed of the last tree." Voss closed her laptop. The room stank of ozone and dread. Somewhere a bell tolled. 3 strikes, then silence. She pulled a flask from her desk, the whiskey bitter on her tongue. Pro mutans eris. Transformation demanded sacrifice. But whose? As dawn bled through the blinds, she booked a flight to Edinburgh. The manuscript's last line haunted her. "The devil's alphabet has no vowels. You must scream them yourself." The relic vanished at midnight, ripped from its velvet cradle in the Basilica of St. John Lateran, a 13th century map of Strasbourg Cathedral, its margins inked with Templar glyphs and the words, "Hic est porta inferi." Here is the gate of hell. The thief left a calling card, a rosary twisted from Freemasons' rope, and a Jesuit silver crucifix. When Father Ignazio Rinaldi, a disgraced exorcist turned Vatican mercenary, arrived at the scene, he found a single clue: a drop of wax stamped with the double-headed phoenix of the Rosicrucians. "They're mocking us," he growled. "But they've forgotten who built the maze. The Vatican's darkest secret, Operazione Lince." Operation Lynx had hunted Malachy's ghost for centuries. A black-budget task force of assassins, archivists, and repentant Satanists. Its mission was simple: erase the prophecies' occult ties. They'd burned manuscripts, silenced scholars, even staged a 1925 arson at the Munich Library to destroy a dossier linking Pope Benedict XV to Rosicrucian financiers. But the Strasbourg map's theft proved they'd failed. Worse, it forced Rinaldi into an unholy pact, partnering with Laila Karim, a Cairo-born Masonic historian whose grandfather had died deciphering Malachy's ciphers for British intelligence. "The Church and the Brotherhoods are two wolves gnawing the same bone," she hissed as they boarded a train to Prague. "But the bone is a grenade." In Prague's Clementinum archive, a vault of hermetic texts lay buried beneath Baroque and frescoes. The break-in was a ballet of violence. Rinaldi disabled alarms with sacramental wine and a stolen Jesuit skeleton key, while Karim hacked the digital locks using a 19th century Masonic tonal cipher. Inside, they found the Liber Ignis, a Rosicrucian grimoire from 1821. Its pages detailing a grand ceremony to be performed at the prophecy's expiration. The ritual's requirements coiled like a noose, the spear of destiny still, stained with Longinus's sin, a living descendant of Malachy's Celtic bloodline, traced through Irish monastic records, and Lumen in Caelo, the final encyclical of the 112th Pope, signed in his last living hour. But the grimoire's diagrams chilled deeper. Strasbourg Cathedral's crypt, built atop a Roman mithraeum, was depicted as a reverse tabernacle, its alignment with Orion's belt mirroring the Vatican's own St. Peter's Square. A Rosicrucian footnote revealed the truth. Both sites were designed by the same medieval architect, a defrocked priest named Alaric of Provence, who'd scribbled, in his journal, "God's house has 2 doors. The second opens only when the first is sealed in blood." As dawn neared, Rinaldi pried open a lid box, hidden behind a portrait of Comenius, the 17th century heretic king. Inside lay a 1943 SS dossier, Project Altwelt, a Nazi plot to use. Malachy's prophecy to purify Europe through eschatological fire. The file named a collaborator, a young Joseph Ratzinger, future Pope Benedict XVI. "They've all been playing the game," Karim whispered. "The church, the brotherhoods, even the damn Nazis. We're just pawns catching up." A siren wailed. Guards closed in. Rinaldi pocketed the dossier, but not before Karim spotted a photo of the Spear of Destiny, its location redacted, except for coordinates, 48-34N, 7-45-5E. Strasbourg, the cathedral spires, and beneath them, a clock ticking toward the spring equinox. As they fled into Prague's fog-choked streets, Rinaldi's phone buzzed, an encrypted alert from the Vatican. Lumen in Caelo had been drafted. The 112th Pope was dying, and the bloodline descendant, a name blinked on screen, Euphonie Maile, a Belfast librarian with a faded Trinity College tattoo of Malachy's cross. The hunt was alive, the relics converging, and deep beneath Strasbourg, something ancient began to breathe. The Pope's collapse was broadcast live to the world, a gasp, a stumble, scarlet cassock pooling on marble like spilled wine. But the cameras missed the figure in the shadows, a blade glinting as it carved Malachy's Ouroboros into St. Peter's Basilica, the serpent's jaws clamped around the papal keys. By dawn, the symbol bled black ichor, and Strasbourg cathedral's bells tolled without hands. The vault beneath the cathedral pulsed like a diseased heart. Freemasons in blood-stained aprons chanted Enochian hymns. Their ritual dagger, the Misericordia from Rome, plunged into a keystone engraved with Pro Mutans Eris. The Spear of Destiny glowed white-hot, its tip pressed to the throat of Aoife, Neem Haile, Malachy's last descendant. Above them, the vault's ceiling mirrored the night sky, Orion's belt aligned not to stars, but to the three artifacts, spear, encyclical, blood. "The unseen Pope comes," roared the lodgemaster, as the walls shuddered. But Rinaldi and Karim arrived in the chaos, Jesuit sacramental knife and Masonic cipher in hand. The revelation struck like lightning. Malachy's phrases, when read backward, morphed into a psalm of warning. "The olive is not glory, but kindling." The prophecy wasn't a path to power. It was a trap, a palindrome of doom written to lure hubris to its pyre. "Reverse the ritual!" Karim screamed, decryption software flashing. The numbers 112 became 21 a biblical code for desolation. The phoenix wasn't rebirth, it was resurrection's thief. As Freemasons chanted, Rinaldi hurled the encyclical into the spear's flame. The vault screamed, stone cracked. But the true horror emerged from the shadows. Cardinal Vitale, head of Operazione Lince, clutching a rosary woven from Masonic rope and Jesuit hair. "You think we serve the Vatican?" He laughed, pressing a blade to Karim's spine. "We serve purification." The splinter faction, Ignis Dei, had orchestrated it all, the stolen relics, the Pope's poisoning, even Malachy's rediscovered manuscript. Their goal? Let the Brotherhoods trigger the apocalypse, then sweep in as saviors of a razed world. The final twist was written in fire. Euf's blood, splashed on the keystone, revealed a hidden phrase, "Non est clavis." There is no key. The 113th Pope was a lie. The ritual, a self-consuming spark. As Strasbourg crumbled, Rinaldi dragged Karim into the crypt's depths, the cardinal's screams swallowed by collapsing stone. Above ground, the world watched the Pope revive on camera, his first words a rasp, "Pray for mercy." But in the rubble, a single parchment survived. Malachy's original prophecy unscorched, its final line added in fresh ink. "The 113th is you." Somewhere, a typewriter clattered, a new encyclical drafted, and in a bunker beneath Castel Gandolfo, a faceless figure in a phoenix mitre smiled. The vault beneath Strasbourg smouldered, its stones reduced to ash and whispers. But the parchment survived. Clutched in Rinaldi's trembling hand, it bore Malachy's faded signature and a fresh, ink-black warning. This is not the end, but the key. Forensic analysis would later call it a forgery, too crisp, too modern. But the carbon dating told a different story. The vellum was 12th century, the ink from 1139, yet the phrase glowed under UV light like wet blood, a palimpsest layered with centuries of secrets. Key to what? The question hung like a hanged man's shadow. The world moved on. The Pope recovered, dismissing his collapse as fatigue. Strasbourg's crypt was sealed, its ruins deemed a structural hazard. But in Cairo, Karim traced the parchment's fibers to a Cairo tannery closed since Napoleon's invasion. A tannery once owned by a Rosicrucian silk merchant, whose ledger included a 1798 shipment to a Society of the Unseen. The parchment was no relic. It was a replica, part of an endless loop. Malachy's prophecy, Karim realized, was never finite. It was a Ouroboros, its tail eternally in its mouth. Every apocalypse thwarted only reset the clock. The final tease came in New York's East Village, in a dim occult shop named the Black Litany. A security camera, glitching at 3:03 a.m., caught the clerk, a pale, ageless figure with a tattoo of a serpent swallowing its tail, shelving a book bound in what looked like human vellum. The title, The 113th Pope. The author, unnamed. The facts, first page, a mirror. The last, a sibilant whisper in print. You are both the lock and the key. But here's the truth they'll never decode. The parchment's message wasn't Malachy's, it was Cardinal Vitale's. DNA lifted from the ink matched his blood, sampled after his death in Strasbourg. Ignis Dei hadn't fallen. They'd evolved. Somewhere in a vault deeper than Vatican basements or Masonic lodges, a new manuscript is being penned. Not in Latin, but in the universal language of greed and revelation. The 113th key was never a pope, a ritual, or a lie. It's the question that outlives the answer, and as the bookstore clerk turned, his eyes flickered, a flash of Jesuit black beneath the hood. The camera died. The tape melted. But the book remained, its pages blank after page 1. Waiting, the last prophecy is the one you write yourself, or the one written for you.